Ever since I was 9 years old, I've always wanted to name my future children after people from Greek stories, because I was obsessed with the Percy Jackson series. I admired every character and thought their lives were so interesting, with all of its tragedy and magic, and frankly, lack of monotonous worries like school, which I so wanted to escape. So I did. I fled to my own world of words. I remember those were the nights when I first started disobeying my bedtime. Little me rebelled to have a couple more pages with these fantastical characters, like Sisyphus, doomed to roll a boulder up a hill forever, or Eurydice, who fell back into the underworld because the person she loved couldn't help looking back, or Pandora, whose curiosity cracked open every evil on this earth. Now, these characters weren't in the series, but to say I was obsessed would be an understatement. I loved every aspect of Greek mythology. The thought of being a half-blood filled my hopes and dreams. And I wanted to be like these characters. So, it was set in my mind. The namesake to my future children would be these characters from Greek stories that I so wanted to be. But I've always hesitated. In the back of my mind, I thought, what would a name connected to such tragedy do to them? Would they carry it like a shadow? These worries forced me to look inward. I myself am very privileged. I'm the youngest child in an Asian American family, and I was raised Catholic, and I remember for about 6 months in 4th grade, I prayed to Zeus instead of Jesus. Though when I say these words, youngest, Asian American, and Catholic, I know you already have a perception about me that is false. My name is Emeline Tran, and according to Google, that means unceasing, vigorous, brave, and diligent. These meanings suggest qualities such as tenacity, innovation, dedication, and a drive to achieve big goals. It is often seen as a name that embodies strength and the willingness to work through challenges. On the other hand, though, I was talking to a close friend of mine, and they described me as incredibly focused, hardworking, and direct. It's really interesting how that worked out, that somehow my name defines me so well. It's as if my personality grew into the outline of the word Emeline. Now, it's undeniable that our names will affect our life based on other people's personal biases towards certain names. But it's way more significant than what you think. In my personal experience, I found us humans are naturally narcissistic and therefore gravitate towards things similar to ourselves. This narcissism is known as implicit egotism, or the unconscious tendency to prefer anything resembling ourselves due to positive self-association. And it can have effects in every aspect of our life without us even realizing. In a study conducted by Matthew Mirenberg, John Jones, and at the University of New York at Buffalo, found that Dennises and Denises were more likely to be dentists, and that people's names who were Marcia were more likely to enjoy Mars bars as a chocolate. More significantly, though, this study found that your name will have measurable effects on at least 2 major life decisions, including where you will live and your career. Even those 2 things have the ability to define your entire life. Though these choices may seem like implicit egotism only affects one's own life, it is shown that your name will have effects on your political beliefs. In the 2000 presidential campaign, people whose last names who began with B and G were more likely to contribute to the election funds of Bush and Gore, respectively. Though these results may seem coincidental, they are far from negligible. In the same research, it is found that you are 44% more likely to live in a city with a name resembling yours than the expected chance value. This makes me question the idea of free will, because I didn't even know so many of our actions are unconscious and affected by a name we're called. But it's not just your actions that are affected by a word you're called. It is proven that your face will actually morph over time based on the stereotypes tied to it. Look at this woman. Based solely on her appearance, what do you think her name is? Now, besides whatever you think her name is, her actual name is Jasmine, which was the most guessed name on average. This connection between a person's face and their name is a sort of Dorian Gray effect, by which growing up with a name leads to alterations in our actual physical features. Now, look at this child. Based solely on his appearance, what do you think his name is? The average guesses for Daniel here, though, were all over the place, following the expected probability of guessing a name to a face. Okay, so what does this mean? This shows us that our faces really do shift over time, and that the face name matching effect is not some strange ability that parents have to name their kids off a future look. In the paper, Can Names Shape Facial Appearance?, researchers go into depth that this effect does not imprint on children. When participants are asked to match a name to a child's face, the results are no better than random chance. But when this same experiment is done on adults, a significant pattern begins to emerge. To further test this, AI-generated adults were created, and this effect did not imprint on these artificially grown people, furthermore proving that your name will affect the structure of your face. Imagine that. Your actual physical features slowly shifting because society expects a bob to look a certain way. Bob, a sound, a noise in the air, somehow shaping a jawline. And yet, at 5 years old, kids across America are told their names are too complicated, or too ethnic, or too hard to pronounce. So they bend, they shorten, they change their names to more Western-sounding names to fit in. They shed pieces of themselves before they even learn to count to 100. That's not a name change, that's an identity detour. Names are not neutral. They're not just the words we answer to when we're called across a classroom. They're the first story we're handed about ourselves. Long before we decide who we are, the world has decided what to expect from us. There's this quote from German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, and it goes like this. 5 minutes after you're born, they will choose your name, nationality, religion, and sect, and you will spend the rest of your life desperately defending things you didn't choose. So, this isn't just about names. It's about the invisible frameworks we're born into, the categories we never asked for, the labels we never deserved. And we carry these labels just like we carry our names, sometimes proudly, sometimes fearfully, and always under the gaze of others. The psychological concept for this is the fundamental attribution error. It's a cognitive bias where you overestimate internal factors like personality and underestimate external factors that actually could have shaped what happened. For example, if someone trips, you may assume they're clumsy, when in reality, there just as easily could have been a crack in the sidewalk. We're too quick to assign fixed meanings to people, including ourselves. We act like names are harmless, like mispronouncing them is an inconvenience, like asking a child to go by something easier is a favor. But if a name can shape our choices, our beliefs, even our faces, then asking someone to abandon theirs is not small at all. It's asking them to rewrite their story before they've even had a chance to live it. I used to worry that naming my future children after people from Greek stories would burden them with tragedy, that a name connected to loss or punishment or downfall would follow them like a prophecy. But now I wonder if the greater tragedy is what society has done, including myself, forcing an agenda on a name. Because if names can push us toward a city, toward a career, toward a belief, then imagine what pride in a name can do. Imagine what happens when a child hears their name pronounced correctly, said confidently and without apology. Names are not hurdles, they're a history. After all, names are just words. They don't define us, we define them. Sometimes I am harsh, sometimes too direct, sometimes terse. And yet that isn't my whole story. My name may suggest diligence and drive, but it doesn't confine me to those traits. I grew into some of them, sure, and some of them grew into me. But Emeline is not a prophecy. Emeline is just me. We live in a world eager to name things, to categorize, to group, to box in, but you don't owe society a definition that fits neatly inside its filing system. You don't need your culture to be pronounceable. You don't need to carry the weight of Sisyphus or the tragedy of Eurydice. And you don't need to play into the stereotypes tied to your labels, whether that be your name, your religion, your political beliefs, or the words people use to call you across the room. Because identity isn't something you inherit, it's something you build. And you can build it beyond any words someone else chooses for you. My name is Emeline Tran, and according to Google, that means unceasing, vigorous, brave, and diligent. But according to me, it means I am still becoming, and so are you. Thank you.